my family arrived in Arizona when I was about 5 years old, right? So I was actually born just days after 9/11, which was when the military regime took over in Chile. Um, and so, really, we left for political reasons, but we were not official political refugees. And so we arrived with what we say in Spanish, our maletas. We had just enough clothes as if we were going on vacation. And it was really about being able to stay safe. My mother really feared us staying in Chile. She was very outspoken. It wasn't well received in the family, but it was dangerous in Chile. And so the U.S. really provided an opportunity to be safe. She was used to living in a democracy in Chile, and that was lost. And so coming to the U.S. was a way out and a way to stay safe. But it wasn't easy. And I'll tell you, for many years, I didn't even realize I was undocumented. And my mother really did not share too much about Chile. I came to learn years later about just the trauma that she experienced and had left behind. But things were really hard. My mother was college educated, but because she was undocumented, wasn't really able to, live out her dream of being a Spanish professor. She worked in factories. In fact, my mom worked 3 jobs. She delivered newspapers. I think she delivered the Wall Street Journal in the morning. She cleaned houses, and she worked at a factory. She's told me stories of when she worked at a factory and immigration, that's what we would call it as kids, came to check up on workers to see if they had legal papers. And my mother did not. And so she was told to jump out of a window. And so, as a young child, I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I came to learn through my mother's lived experiences of how hard it was for her to find work. My parents eventually divorced when I was about 12. And my mother was found to have cervical cancer when I was about 13. And she didn't have access to health insurance. But my mom was able to get the care she needed through what I think was a federally qualified clinic. And those were the community organizations that were there to support those who didn't have access to health care. And we moved around a lot. My mom had a hard time finding work. So we went from Arizona to New Jersey. So we moved to New Jersey when I was a second grader. And then we moved again to Chicago when I was a sophomore in high school. Because, again, there was limited work for somebody that was undocumented. Luckily, we were able to get support to apply for our residency. And actually, that was with the Catholic Charities, again, a nonprofit who was there to support us. And my mother is a very prideful woman. She never wanted to ask for help. But I'm glad that she did, because our lives changed drastically when we became legal permanent residents. I became a legal permanent resident in high school, and I became a citizen when I was 20 years old. I was able to go on to college. I now have my master's. I've done work in the Illinois state legislature. So it's been full circle, but I think my lived experience really helped me see the difference in the quality of life from being both an undocumented immigrant and then being a legal permanent resident and a naturalized citizen. I have a good quality of life. I am now married with a public school teacher and have 3 children who are thriving. And so that really taught me a lot about what's fair and what's right, and the quality of life that we all deserve as human beings. Because the reality of immigration is not just in the U.S., it's throughout the world.
And thank you for sharing that. And I think listening to you share your story, those lived experiences, it's very easy to see what inspired you to do the work that you're doing with Illinois Unidos, and before that, to be able to, because what these people are going through.
Right.
So many years later, from what you experienced with your mom and the bouts of cancer and poor access to healthcare, if healthcare at all, has much changed since you came here as a young child to now as an adult leading in this work?
I don't think so. I think we've been able to impact and improve certain policies, but we continue to have millions of immigrants who came here to work or to escape political unrest. Um, in fact, now Chicago, like other states, are also dealing with political refugees from Venezuela and throughout the Americas. And so some things haven't changed. I feel very privileged and lucky that if it was not for the amnesty of 1986, I wouldn't be in this situation where I actually am now college educated, fully bilingual, right? I'm able to raise children and be able to give them all the rights that U.S. citizens have, but those rights to healthcare, to education, um, are things that all humans should have access to.